Good evening. I've been waiting for this moment for a very long time. I mean, every time I try to get through to this gentleman, he's an icon. He doesn't want to be called an icon. He doesn't want to be called a veteran. He doesn't want to be called internationally acclaimed, which he's all of these things that I'm talking about. Of course, there were so many hiccups that I couldn't get him on the program, but fortunately, he's on the program today. He's none other than the film icon, Mr. Chandran Ratnam. Let's say a good evening to Mr. Ratnam. Good evening, Mr. Ratnam.
Good evening, good evening.
It's a pleasure to have you on the program, Chandran.
Thank you.
I've been trying for so long, ever so long, to get you on this program. And something or the other, yes, you know. I know. Yeah. Let's talk about you. It is time for us to celebrate your life.
Okay.
The work you've done for the field of arts, cinema. You're not a celebrated person in this country, but you're internationally acclaimed, which you really don't like to be called, because when we talk about basically Hollywood, the only man who had a link to Hollywood, who worked with the big names, who brought the big names to this country, is you, amidst, you know, making local cinema as well. How did it come about?
Well, it's well, when I was a kid, in our youth, the only entertainment we had was all the Hollywood movies that were shown in Sri Lanka. So, I mean, you didn't go to a movie, you went to every movie that came to Sri Lanka, to Colombo.
You mean to say, since you were a kid, you were basically dreaming big, and was this the line of work that you wanted to choose, or was this just a passion?
All the time. There was no other thing I wanted to do. And, you know, fortunately for me, when I was 16, a gentleman, a friend of ours, brought a very handsome man to our home and asked my mother whether she would rent the annex. We had two houses and there was an annex in front of this was in front of the Cinnamon Gardens police station. So, and my mother said, no, it's not for rent. And then I got to know what it was all about. I heard something about movies and I told my mother, no, you got to give it to this guy.
Because you were so passionate about movies.
Yeah, I just knew that there was some connection, you know. So, I coaxed her into...
But did you have a voice at that time? I know your father was an eminent doctor in the country, mother a very strong personality, but, 16-year-old boy.
I mean, you know, kids can do things, you know.
Yeah, I know. Especially if you're the mother's pet.
Yes, exactly. So I had some influence over my mother. I convinced her to rent it out to this guy, and a very nice gentleman. And then I got to know that he's come here to make a movie. And then I got to know
the famous movie.
And we didn't know at that time.
Yes.
And then we found out that he was what you call the property master. For people who don't know the industry, property master is somebody who creates all the sets, all the props that are within the set. The art director creates the design and the sets, but these are the items that are being used on the set that are going to be moved around.
So he's called the property master.
Yeah, property master. And there is usually a property master who works very closely with the director, and also he has a standby prop man who stands by the director and takes care of everything what the director would like to.
Is he more powerful than the art director, or does he work under the art director?
They work closely together, but the production designer is above both of them. So anyway, I coaxed this thing to happen. I created this to happen, and then I found that he got very friendly with me, and he said to me, you know, my girlfriend is coming. Can you help me pick her up at the airport? So I wanted to get a job at 16. So I
in the movies.
In the
job in the movies.
In the movies. So we went to the airport and we picked up this beautiful girl. And what my mother rented was an upstairs bungalow with a balcony. So this beautiful girl and this very handsome man were living there and doing all the sketches and working on a movie. Not shooting, preparing. And then one day I went to see him and I saw this beautiful lady not clad in too many clothes, lying on the balcony sunning herself. So now I had a brother. And he also found out that this lady suns herself all the time.
On the balcony.
On the balcony.
So the boys were always out
So
on
we were fighting. Whenever he wanted something, normally we would ask the servant to take a cup of tea. But no, we would carry the tea. And my brother and I were fighting which one is going to take the tea.
So you took turns.
So we took turns and had a good observation. So anyway, we got friendly with this guy. And I started working with him. I said, why don't you want to come and help me? I said,
so this is the very first Hollywood production that came to Sri Lanka. Was it a British production or?
It was a British-American production.
Okay.
British-American.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's up to date. It's the biggest thing I've ever worked on.
Absolutely.
And I think it's if you talk about the 10 most important classics in the history of film, you'll
this
find
is one of them.
Quite there. It won 8 Academy Awards.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I started working with him, and he was very impressed with me.
And this is the movie that made Mr. Gamini Fonseca as well.
Yes.
So two icons.
Yeah, I'll talk about Gamini now. So now I was employed on a daily basis. You see, he said, if you come to Kitulgala, I'll give you a job. But Gamini was employed on a different capacity, because the only film that was ever made in Sri Lanka at that time was Rekava. So they considered everybody who worked on Rekava, who had never done any work before in movies,
as the professionals in the country.
As the professionals in the country.
Okay.
So there was Vijay Abedeva, Gamini Fonseca, Sesha Paliyakara. So they all got jobs on the film. Now they were given accommodation and everything in Kitulgala.
Okay.
I was not. I was a daily hand.
Okay, so you had to travel every day from Colombo.
Yeah, but I didn't.
And that must have been a difficult task.
No, I went there, and I honestly stayed in a village hut. I paid some money. They gave me a mat. It's no exaggeration. And then I used to go up to the main bungalow in Kitulgala.
So that's how passionate you were?
Yes.
So that's what made the man called Chandran Ratnam.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you slept on a mat in a little hut.
And Gamini and them had beds and chalets. So I used to
So were you envious of them?
Yeah, we became friends.
How did your parents see this, Chandran?
Well, my father was out of the country at that time. So I didn't have that problem. But I was able to not con my mother, but convince my mother to allow me to go on this little adventure. She thought it's going to be a short-lived adventure, but it turned out to be
How long did the entire project?
Oh, that took 10 months. But now this is interesting how I met Gamini, and then we would have a few drinks there, and then he would sometimes say, why don't you stay in the room with me? And then the security would find out that I was there, and they would so it became an issue. And then it was Gamini who said, hey, why is that guy staying over there? He should be with us. And I also impressed them with my work. And then they moved me into the main house.
Okay.
So Gamini was responsible.
But he has always been responsible for the industry, and basically to upgrade and uplift the industry and the people, to give them dignity. Let's go away for a little while. When you come back, more about the international film industry. When we talk about icons in the film industry, Mr. Gamini Fonseca was the icon. When we talk about on the producing side, if there is an icon in this country, that's Mr. Chandran Ratnam. Now, you don't want to be called an icon, but you were talking about how both of you came into the industry, and so that gave you basically the edge to stay in the industry.
I worked there, and then my good friend, the property master, his name was Eddie Fowley. He had to go and he had to leave to work on another film. So since I was
did you follow him?
No. Since I was doing a good job, they left me there to finish the job.
Okay.
So I was working. This is the greatest.
So
thing.
you took on Eddie's
for a few months.
Okay.
Yeah. But the greatest thing I ever did was work with the greatest director in the world, David Lean, for 6 months.
So that experience.
When I'm saying working with him, I was next to him, thinking ahead of him, listening to every conversation he had, eavesdropping on everything, and anticipating his requirement on the set.
So Chandran, was that what gave you the edge? Because that's like going to university. You don't have to go to uni. Absolutely. That 6 months would have given you what you would go to film school and
Exactly. So
and practical knowledge.
Absolutely.
Hands-on knowledge.
Yeah. So when they all packed up to leave, I left too.
So you dropped out of school and you just left?
I just left.
And that was to London?
That was to London. And then I went to...
And subsequently you ended up in...
Yeah, I asked the production manager, I said, will you give me a job if I come to London? He said, of course. They never thought I'm going to pack up and come. So I landed in London and I called him, and he's the same production manager. He said, we are doing another film.
Where was the location?
In Dorset, down south, on the English Channel. And with Sophia Loren and William Holden again, and Trevor Howard. If you come down, I'll give you a job. So I went down there and bumped into William Holden, whom I had got friendly with in Colombo, on Bridge on the River Kwai. And they saw the relationship I had with Bill Holden, and they put me in charge of him. As a, they put a production PA in charge of Bill Holden.
So you were the PA?
That was my job, right through the film. And then I got...
So these connections, this networking was very, I suppose, invaluable for you.
Of course. That's what got me to Hollywood. So William Holden said, if you ever come to Hollywood, look me up. Well, I went to Hollywood and I looked him up.
And you, not that if you went to Hollywood, it was not an accident, purposefully, you just thought...
No, I went there on purpose.
Yes.
But also I had a little advantage. A couple of years before, I had gone on a trip to America with my mother. And so I had a little bit of savvy, So, and I went to the studios and all that. But
that's what we all Sri Lankans do. First thing is Universal Studios, then Disneyland, and so we do the usual.
So I did all that. So I had a little bit of an age. In those days, not many people had gone. So then when I went to Hollywood, William Holden was having a tax problem, and he had decided to live in Switzerland. But he got me a job at Warner Brothers. I worked at Warner Brothers for about 5 years. And while I was working at Warner's, I went to film school at night.
Okay.
So I went to USC.
So you finally went to film school?
Yes, I went to film school.
But you must have been ahead of the rest of the class.
Yeah, I was in some areas. But I was mainly interested in editing. But I realized that was the heart.
That's your speciality anyway.
Yeah, that was the heart of that is the heart of the movie industry.
Yeah,
you can ruin a film. You can ruin a film with bad editing, and you can make a bad thing good with good editing.
And the editor has to be in par with the director.